Comedian and podcaster Adam Carolla is exactly the man to make the moment, and he joins me now. It's good to see you, sir. I have missed you.
I missed you, too.
So what do you think of what my suggestion would have been of how the president should have handled this Knick game tonight? Am I totally off, making too much of it?
No, I never really considered the watch party and the canceling of the watch party, because that is the everyman who can't afford a ticket to watch it
6,000.
with others that enjoy as well. Yeah, and so it makes it its own sporting event outside of the sporting event. I mean, you could go to a Knicks bar, and that's kind of cool because people want the communal experience, but this is essentially like watching the game live without spending $10,000 for a ticket. So I think knowing that, Trump should have canceled, because canceling the watch parties, I agree with you on that. In terms of win or lose, we're talking about him, and that's a win, I think, for Trump. I think we try to measure Trump through our prism, like, oh, isn't that embarrassing? Or you don't want to hear this, or the New York Times is going to say that. He's like, as long as my name is being said every 12 seconds, I am winning.
I just wish there could have been a big win for a lot of people tonight. It would have been good for him, but more importantly, it would have been better for a lot of other people. Let me ask you about something else that matters to you a lot, which is the race for mayor in Los Angeles. I got to tell you, it is easy to be right about what went wrong. You've been right about it with the fires and how they were handled/mishandled, and I thought you had great perspective and a lot of great information on it. And there's absolute political stink and blame for Mayor Karen Bass all day long. No question about it. Here's my political problem, and then I have a process problem. My political problem is this. Pratt, Raman, they were both right about what went wrong. Spencer Pratt, don't you have to be something more than just someone who's right about what's wrong? Don't you have to have some level of competency, Adam? I mean, we both know. I don't mean to judge the man. He can't do this job in a way that you and I would want it done. He just can't. You can't just jump in and be LA mayor cold.
Well, I interviewed Spencer Pratt a couple of times, and, there's more there than, reality star guy, just like there is with almost everyone. When you really kind of get to talk to him a little bit, you go, all right. Somebody said, do you want this guy with no experience, reality star, running, a city as large as Los Angeles? And let me tell you where my head is on this as a Los Angelino who's been here my entire life. Bass and Nithya Raman and many of the people that have come before them are a product that we're aware of. They're a losing quarterback. They're somebody who's been in the league and they've won 3 games and they've lost 19 games. And Spencer Pratt is a guy who played junior college and he never was in a major program. And he's a total unknown. And I'm the coach. And basically my head on it is this guy's an unknown, but these guys are 2-19, so I'll roll the dice on the unknown. And that's basically my metaphor for this. I wouldn't guarantee he'd win us the game, but I do know the winning percentage of those who came before him, and it's not good.
Just because someone else sucked does not mean you or I would be better. And the only tweak I would do to your analogy is the brother has never picked up a ball, Spencer Pratt. It's not that he's a junior college ball player, Adam. You and I are junior college ball players, okay? He has never picked up a ball. And don't we want to start rewarding people who have a degree of competency and put them into positions of authority and see what they do with it? Can't you pick somebody better than just the other ones suck?
Well, listen, to keep the analogy going, I wish there was somebody there like Dr. Drew or Mark Garagos, guys we know. Guys that have lived here, guys that are competent. There's plenty of people who I've spent time with. I'd be over the moon if Mark Garagos ran for mayor or Dr. Drew ran for mayor, but they're not. Right now, it's the unknown player who never played a down in the league, and the ones we've seen throw a lot of pick sixes.
Here's my process issue. There's no question your state can do better. There's no question it's got to re-examine. I get where this is coming from, expanding the envelope, but there's obviously something wrong with the postal system if it takes 7 days to move a piece of mail inside the state, which is what your rule is there, right? If it's marked by election day, you get 7 days before it has to be in to be counted. It's just breeding a lack of confidence, even though it's not like we can point to a lot of fraud, and there's been a lot of investigations of the process. Are you worried that saying, this is obviously rigged because Pratt had so many votes early on? He had votes early on because they count the day of voters first. And the mail-in vote is huge and is disproportionately Democrat. We shouldn't be surprised by this.
No, I think what it does is it opens the door to potential fraud, which then gets people talking about it and accusations of fraud. So it's essentially saying, I don't think there's wide-scale fraud. I think there's the potential of it because we can't, we do ballot harvesting, we do all the mail-in stuff, we do all the stuff that fraudsters could exploit. So we could fix the problem by just doing it how other states did it, and then we wouldn't be accused of fraud. So it's kind of, both sides are right. Like on one side, I don't think there is widespread fraud. On the other side, if you're going to take a month to count the votes, you're going to get accused of fraud.
Right. I agree that the process has to be better. But you win the argument, in my opinion, that it's not a fraud problem. We have tons of actual real problems that need to be addressed. This isn't one of them. It's a perceived problem. That's my point about it. But the larger point is, help me understand Trump's play on this. The only thing we know on a large scale of what was done to really mess with an election recently is what his people did. And he says Biden put him in jail. Judges put him in jail. Legal bodies took their law licenses. They were forced to admit that they lied about evidence in court. This isn't about Biden going after people. These are Trump's people who were caught lying.
Well, I think it's a two-way street. I think there's plenty of now information that suggests people in the Biden administration went after Trump as well. It's game on.
Oh, no.
It's lawfare.
Biden went after Trump. Democrats went after Trump. Full stop. I also think he did everything he was accused of, but they went after him and made cases that I have criticized that I don't think they would have ever brought if it weren't Trump. No question. I'm saying when the president says, Adam, Biden threw all these people in jail because of the election, because they were trying to prove that it was rigged. No, he didn't do that. They were thrown in jail for lying and trying to manipulate the process. I mean, what am I missing here?
I don't think you're missing anything. I'm just saying, once I'll tell you the problem with the Biden administration, in my opinion. They said things like race is the biggest problem and white supremacy is the biggest problem we have in this country, and the biggest danger we face is white supremacy, and then they went out and found it. And I think anytime you go out and find it, you're in trouble. If there is such cases, then fine, prosecute them. But if you're cooking them to pad your numbers, then that's where impropriety comes in. And I think Biden did a lot of that, and Trump does that as well. As far as California goes, they want them to open the voter rolls and have a look, and they're suing them. Here's what I'm saying. California, if they want to look into fraud, let them look into fraud. Don't sue the federal government for looking into fraud. And if they want you to open their voter rolls, open your voter rolls. Don't sue them, because I have a sort of analogy, which is a cop pulls you over and says, "What's in the trunk?" And you say, "There's nothing in the trunk." And then he says, "You mind if I take a look?" Pop the trunk. And I go, "I'm not popping the trunk." And then he goes, "I thought there was nothing in the trunk." And I go, "I'm going to sue you if you make me pop the trunk."
I agree. But you have to be a little careful, because you got to make sure that the reason that they want to look is good reason and not bad reason. But ordinarily, you're right, and it certainly creates a suspicion. And here is the bad news for both of us. Our politics is getting so much more extreme and so violent that nobody's going to have the market cornered when it comes to having people from its side, in quotes, doing terrible things, because it's happening more and more all the time. The good news for us is the antidote is me and you, brother, having conversations like this. We may not agree about how we see things and in what matters, but I'm always open to your side on it, and I'll always be fair about it, and I appreciate you taking the opportunity.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you having me, and I'm all for the open dialogue.
Well, you got it, and I'm always a call away. Take care. Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.